There are many investing strategies out there, and one popular strategy is to dollar cost average your way into the American Market Index ETF. So I decided to make this video to see how this strategy would have worked if you performed this over other 15-year periods in history. So note that past results do not indicate future performance, and this is not me endorsing or slandering the strategy, this is me purely talking about the factual historical numbers. So I decided to invent a time machine so I could go back in time and actually trial the strategy for myself of investing $1,000 per month into the S&P 500 Market Index ETF, so I can trial how this strategy would have performed in other times in history, in both the good and the bad times of history. I've said history many times, haven't I? And, you know, actually, why not? I'll say it one more time. History. So I'll try 2007 to today. So now what I'm going to do is use two drills, and they're going to use counter-rotating electromagnetic fields. And what this will do is this will create a bit of a quantum entanglement, big fancy scientific words, which will allow time travel to be possible. So just bear with me a moment while I'll travel back to 2007. Hey, what year is this? What year is it? It's 2007. Sweet, 2007. All right, I need you to try a science experiment for me. That thing that Steve Jobs has released in the iPhone. Does anyone actually get into that? I don't tell you things about the future because of, I don't know, grandfather paradox or something like that. So I'm going to give you $12,000, and with this $12,000 every year, I need you to invest it into the Market Index ETF, because I want to see what will happen if you started in 2007, and if you continued the strategy up to 2022, how rich would be. All right, fine. So $1,000 per month into a market index fund being the S&P 500. Right. So now we're back in 2022, and let's see how that 15-year of dollar cost averaging into the S&P 500 went. So you'd find that out of investing just under $200,000, in fact $192,000 of your own money, you would be worth $2.2 million. You have not heard that incorrectly. You have an 11-fold growth on the money that you've invested. In short, you can argue that the last 15 years has kind of been phenomenally good for world markets, especially when you compare it to recent history. So I decided to actually run the same experiment through one of the worst 15-year periods in history. So that was 1994 to 2009. So in this period, we had the dot-com crash, 9/11, and the GFC. So using this exact same strategy of investing $1,000 per month or $12,000 per year for 15 years, let's see how you would have gone. Can I help you? What year is this? It's 1994. Sweet! Yeah, I'm from the future. What, you're saying that two drills spinning in opposite directions is a time machine? Oh yeah, it's actually pretty good. I use two drills here, and what I do is I spin them, creating an electromagnetic field. And what they do is they create a bit of a quantum bubble that uses quantum physics. And so that suddenly makes everything okay. And allows for a slipstream, a bit of quantum entanglement in there as well. Okay, I'm a really low budget YouTuber, and I'm really... YouTuber? By the way, it's 1994, and what's YouTube? Never mind. As an experiment, can you just invest $12,000 in the American market? Yeah, okay. Yeah, no worries. That's fine. Well, anyway, I want to see how this experiment goes, so see you in the future. Alrighty, so let's see how that went. So 1994 to 2009, that went through the dot-com crash, 9/11, and the GFC. So out of that $192,000 that was invested, that would have ended up with $334,000. So that is approximately a 74% growth. Or if you divide that into the per year, that is a 4.93% growth. That is still not good, but it's still okay. I mean, they're still coming out ahead. They've still coming out with more money than what they put in, and it's still more than inflation was. But do you want to know something that's pretty interesting about this 2009 period back to 1994? Is that was the worst 15-year period in modern history, but the 5 years after it was actually one of the best. So it is a little bit of the lower the low, the higher the high. So if you continued this strategy from 2009 up to 2014 to make it a 20-year strategy rather than a 15-year strategy, that would have ended up with $1.7 million. And instead of having a 4.93 annual average return, you'd have a 14% average return. So if you do happen to do this strategy and it sort of ends on your 15-year period during a really bad market, just give it an extra 5 years and you'll find that it most likely will come very good for you. So what's my key takeaway from this time traveling experiment? Well, to reach your financial independence retire early amount, historically speaking, it would have taken 15 years if you're normal. And if you're unlucky, it would have taken 20 years. And if you're lucky, it would have taken 10 years. However, for the 15 years that are coming up, unfortunately my machine can't travel into the future, it can only travel into the past. So I can't tell you how it's going to perform. And the numbers could even fall outside of these parameters which I just mentioned. And I bet now you're thinking, okay, but that's only just 2 small samples from history. What about other periods in history from say like the last half century? Well, that is actually a very valid point. And so I'm going to give out the numbers for what would happen if you started investing at the start of every decade for 15 years. So I'll start with the 1950s. If you invested any money in 1950, it would be 11-folded by 1965. Wow, an 11-fold. I'd like and subscribe to that. And for whatever money you invested in 1960, by 1975, it would have grown by 2.83 times. For whatever money you invested in 1970, that would have grown by 4.83 times by 1985. And the money that you invested in 1990 through to 2005, that would have grown by 5.25 times as much. And do you remember that really bad period, 2000 to 2015? That would have grown by 1.81. Oh, and for that most recent period of 2007 till today, that is a 4.34% growth. So relatively speaking, I mean, although it feels like we've had a very strong market before the start of 2022, historically speaking, it's actually pretty close to the average. Actually, let's talk about the average. The average for all of the 15-year periods from 1950 through to today is a 5.65 folding growth on your money. The worst case scenario was 1.8 times folding growth, and the best case scenario was 11 times folding growth on your money. And again, the future will not always be the same as the past, and uncertain things may happen, and those in history has always been written, and it may change its variables in the future, so you can't use this as an indicator for your future investing decisions. But even with that worst case of that 1.8% return, that is still comparable for the interest rates at the time, and it is definitely higher than inflation. And so, although it wasn't such a great return, I mean, they're still doing okay. And although we do have a lot of sample data here, we have to remember that from the 1950s through to today, none of the samples include some of the variables that we're dealing with. And some of these variables include the fact that we're recovering from a global pandemic, the fact that there is a three-pronged new Cold War developing, and the fact that we have a massive portion of our population hitting retirement age soon. And so these will be unique challenges that the world will be facing, which may give us historically different results from what we've seen in the past. Anyway, thanks for watching and see you next week. That just makes me seem really dorky, doesn't it? I really need to think of a better way to end my videos better than... I mean, come on, man. Am I even trying?